But one of the most frustrating responses came from the big ticket, aka Kevin Garnett, where he had a lot to say in regards to the younger players not necessarily being students of the game and understanding the history. That's really the main difference between today's players and the players like Kobe Bryant, who I believe either after his first or second championship, he recognized that he was nowhere near even close to being an all-time Laker because he understood the history of the game. He mentioned guys like Kareem and what actually made them great. So these guys were savants of certain eras that impacted the league overall. The fact that Anthony Edwards is trying to be one of the faces of the next generation, but yet does not even understand what took place in one of the most impactful eras of the NBA with Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, and Larry Bird. It says a lot. But you guys check out what KG had to say, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
If I'm being honest, bro, I don't think anybody in this generation could have played like 20 years ago. If I'm being 100, and this is to everybody in our league, Tatum, all y'all. Let me tell y'all something, bro. 20 years ago, bro, you couldn't get to a triple step back.
Nah.
You hear what I'm saying to you? You couldn't get to a triple step back.
Once again, KG right there mentioning the triple step back because the gather step was not really accepted into the league until the early 2000s. That's where you see Manu Ginobili and the Spurs, all the razzle dazzle by the Argentinian. So the league sort of accepted that move going into the early 2000s.
And then if you shot that it had to go in. You know why? Because we had efficiency back in the day, my dude, and it was so it was too physical. And guess what? The league had to come off of it for the flow of movement to be able to have scoring go up, which is why we like to sit here and watch kind of the rat race of the high-paced game, right?
And that's also because Michael Jordan had recently left the league and the ratings were so abysmal. The NBA was not only struggling with getting those ratings up, and you've seen the league kind of struggle with what I like to call the Michael Jordan after effects, where the next generation that came in were sort of imitating him and trying to do their best with the volume shooting. And for the most part, the average field goal percentage was about 40%. So that style of play wasn't really a great product to put on television.
But bro, let's not talk about the game and let's not talk about the physicality of the game back then. Real I only think half these kids in the league could have been on an NBA team 20 years ago.
Straight up.
The locker room was too grown.
Now that right there speaks to another dynamic that started happening when LeBron James and Carmelo Anthony came into the league, where you started to see franchises off rip before these guys even suited up for their first official game, giving them the keys to the franchise. Just looking at the players that came a few years before those guys, like Allen Iverson, Kobe Bryant, Steve Nash, they had to earn and fight in order to gain that status, especially Kobe Bryant. Just seeing the way it was almost a trickle-down effect of just seeing LeBron James at 18 come into the league and just automatically put as the vocal leader in a league where, for the most part, those locker rooms were grown. And fast forward to today, you see guys coming into the league 18, 19, and off rip before they even did anything, they're given the keys to the franchise. There was a lot of pushback during that transition. And a perfect example of that is the way Carmelo Anthony clashed with his head coach, George Karl.
You know what I watched too? You know what I watched?
It was two of them. It was too much of a fraternity. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, man.
Just
like
the hand check.
No, bro. It was a different vibration.
It was definitely a different vibration. Even the way Anthony Edwards came into the Minnesota Timberwolves being drafted. Off rip, they kind of anointed him the leader. Had it been 20 to 15 years prior, a person on the level of Karl Anthony Towns would not have surrendered those keys as easily. Edwards would have to fight for that in practice, and the alpha male energy was almost through the roof. The money wasn't as large. Guys had to fight for their contracts. So another high-level draft pick coming into the same team, it was competition, man. It was competition for those dollars.
David Stern did a great job of taking all of the physicality out of the game. You understand? Freedom of movement means freedom of movement. Man, back in the day when you had to get by Paul, because Paul was squared up with you and ready to slide, and then he could body you, he could poke, he could use his hands, but I can use my hands.
I could fight through a screen.
Bro, in the Olympics was similar style play when the guard can ride you damn near over the pick.
Yeah.
And if you don't know how to get out of that, and Holiday, when he come out and he get over, he there.
And the Olympics is a prime example of where we see guys like Joel Embiid struggle. All the acting job that he does on these fouls, he was not getting it. There was a struggle there. And at times, Team USA throughout this tournament, the offense became stagnant and Stephen Curry had to come out of nowhere and bail them out of it. So a lot of the players did have to adjust to the physicality because the game over there is a bit more original to the true nature of basketball and the way it was designed. But that true original form of basketball is not quite as entertaining as the way Adam Silver and David Stern currently design today's NBA. If that was the case, millions of dollars will be pouring into these Euro leagues and ratings will be through the roof.
Right. So if you go to cross him, bro, you don't even, that's what I'm saying, bro. Man, the levels in which you had to be not only strong enough, but skilled enough to get by this.
And the strength and conditioning was no joke. Michael Jordan, after losing the series against the Detroit Pistons, just before he got over the hump to get to the finals the following season, that offseason he put on about 5 to 10 pounds of muscle. He had to regroup and actually rebuild his body in order to get past the Detroit Pistons. A player like Luka, who doesn't really take his strength and conditioning as serious, would never have gotten past the Pistons back then. But again, you can't really compare eras because if you took that Pistons team and placed them in today's league, a lot of those guys with the spacing and the pace of play and just the overall skill set will be phased out.
They ain't never seen a 6'7" Rodman guard you. Bro, I see you. And you know, you in the scout report. We know you go left. We know you can finish right, but you go left to pull up. Bro, everybody knows, bro, in the games back then. Them Isaiah Thomases and the Dumars, man. Dumars shut Jordan down. Bro, they was coming to the lane, bro. You might get your nose broke trying to dunk. You understand? Dwayne Wade broke Cole's nose in the All-Star game.
The All-Star game especially, is the way you could see the differences in the eras. The way guys just not necessarily taken as serious today, and that's because monetarily they're worth so much to their franchises, they can't risk injury in a pointless game. But if you happen to catch one of these replays of an All-Star game, let's say in 1998, these guys were trying to outdo each other. The mentality and competitiveness was on a different level.
Man, bro, it's just different. It was very different back then, bro. Real I'm talking about in the locker room. You can't be on your phone in the locker room. Can't. Bro, 20 years ago? Nah, nobody in this era could have played 25 years ago. We said that. And I'm talking about not just the play and all the skill that everybody got, actually was called bad shots and lack of efficiency. It was until they start data and saying take more threes than twos. Before then, we played ball, bro. We didn't give a that the GM couldn't come down and say, put into a game plan with a coach like Doc or D'Antoni talking about, we trying to get touches and touch the paint. Bro, I didn't see.
Yeah, it's hard to say more skill.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Nobody in this era has a mid-range.
Bro, you couldn't get, nobody.
That's false. Jokic has a mid-range. Booker has a mid-range. Kevin Durant has a mid-range. That's really a lack of innovation on the coaches and the GMs. And the ultimate model that a lot of these teams try to follow is the Phoenix Suns of the mid-2000s, where Mike D'Antoni actually used the mid-range game. He used all facets of the overall offense to get buckets. It just wasn't layup and threes. And that analytical style of play is really what's hurting the views. The games look way too predictable. Basketball is an art and it's way more than just layups and threes. It was always a beautiful thing to watch teams have versatility in styles. Maybe you might watch a fast-paced team go up against a team with a great center or a team that had a more defensive play style and they got a lot of buckets in transition. Adam Silver and that competition committee has steadily been tweaking the rules a bit to add more versatility to the game.
Nobody in this era has a post game.
And the ones that do look amazing. Look at Shea. Shea got a mid-range.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
it's only like a few of them got.
that's what I'm saying, bro. 2 dribble, pull up.
Yeah, they don't.
Try to do it. Okay, young fella, if you hear me. And then y'all exhaust the ball. Y'all are dribbling the air out of the ball.
Right.
I.e. Anthony Edwards, especially during these Olympics. And that's going to be a conundrum for Team USA going forward. Depending on how he evolves his game in the next few years, as he's going to try to chase championships, it's going to be interesting to see how he adapts his game. Because currently right now, he sometimes falls into the trap of just holding on to the ball too long, and he's not making decisions quick enough. So for the 2028 Olympics, if he's going to want to be that leader, he's going to have to evolve his game into being more of a playmaker also, and improving on his passing.
I'll dribble the ball 100 times more than another.
Right.
Catch it off the bounce. 1 dribble, 2 dribble, pull
Right.
up. Let me see you do that off the bounce.
Right.
Let me see your skill work off that. I ain't even known it like this, but bro, you can't come and expect a rebuttal. Bro, real was totally different. And you had to have that work, and you had to really work on your You know, you was out 2-3 games, man. Your teammates, hey, bro, what you doing tonight? You going? Nah, I can't go, man. My toenail off, man. I can't. Nah, bro, you can't even come in here and lead no like that. You hear me?
Nah.
So you had to strap it up, and you had to get out here. You had to dive on the floor. You had to get in the rumble. Yeah.
Right.
Real you had, man, it was men leading men. Yeah, ain't none of these no lockout. And Anthony Edwards don't know what's going on with the league policy. This, bro, you understand what I'm talking about? The leader, bro. Man, I can't even have this conversation.
You can't even say it if you ain't watched.
It ain't the same. It ain't the same.
Like,
Then
don't
you say I didn't watch.
and don't say you didn't
Oh
watch.
man, Jordan, the only one has skill. Yeah, I know you didn't watch the game.
I know you
For him
didn't
saying
watch.
that.
Yeah,
So,
you can't say
you
that
know
and
what?
then say
Respect
you
to the
don't
young
watch.
fella, man. I don't get on here, and we don't use this platform to douse anything. But I'm not gonna start the
you gotta-
cooning. I'm here to elevate the game. I'm here to help the young players elevate themselves. But
Yeah,
it's
you gotta
always
say.
different eras. And when you hear Michael Jordan and some of the greats talk about the different eras of play, the 80s was different from the 70s, the 70s was different from the 60s, the 60s was different from the 50s. But in all of it, it had gamemanship, it had aggressiveness, and it had stuff that came with it that you didn't really hear about that you hear now. Man, half these be in the locker room. Half these no parents and one mom and all, you know what I'm saying? A lot of these they mom and dad and a lot of these outside.
KG means a lot of the players were not polished. You couldn't be just the nicest and most skilled player and automatically lead these guys. Sometimes you may have to ruffle a few feathers, get into a few dust-ups to let motherfuckers know, hey, I'm the leader here. Today's superstars and quote-unquote leaders of the teams have a lot of introverted players. In a way, the league is definitely getting more polished, and these guys are becoming a bit more corporatized, less personality-based. As you can see with Jason Tatum, that guy is scared to say anything to get himself canceled. He's just so robotic.
I'm really from the park, man. I'm really from Basswood. I really did play at Springfield Park. You know what I'm saying? Cleveland Park, all the parks.
Right.
I really was at Argyle.
Right.
I really was on 16th. I really was hanging out on Ridgeway. Like I'm saying that to say that, yeah. Like, man, it was different times. So when I hear these things, they don't add up because it was a different time in how you played, bro.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And then there was a lot of two-way players back then that was real. I'm talking about stars. I'm talking about Gary Payton, the Jason Kidds, the Michael Jordans, the Grant Hills, the McGrady's and the Cobes, you know what I'm saying? The TDs, the C. Webbs, the Rasheeds,
He must have been talking about like the 60s or
Nah.
something.
It was a norm back in those times for the best player to want to guard the other team's best player. That's where I referenced earlier in this segment to the illegal defensive rules being changed. There was no zone defense. You had to guard your man straight up. And if you were going to double, you had to double. You could not stunt and then try to get back to your original man. If you were going to double, you had to fully commit, or that was going to be a violation with free throws. So the standards for superstars definitely has changed. And today, a lot of superstars are being hidden on defense to conserve energy. And in a way, the flip side of the coin is to understand today's current players. They're dealing with a lot more skilled players with a lot more space to cover and defend. So both generations kind of got to understand where each other is coming from. And this happens in different aspects of life. You see this from entertainment to the corporate sphere to construction, engineering, the medical field. There's always a generational gap, but the generations always fail to try to understand each other and some of the dynamics with the tools that they were given at the time that they were able to operate at their best.
Lord, he feeling himself, and I like that. I like that he feels good, but when you're a savant and you're talking to the league and you spitting different you gotta know what you're talking about.
Right. That's facts. That is facts. And you could look back at all the previous savants, Kobe Bryant, Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan. When they spoke about the leagues in the overall historical context, you can see that they understood the eras that came before them, even eras that was before their childhood. They went back and sort of looked at some of the inner nuances that took place and how some of those players were able to elevate and innovate the game to push it forward.
To be in the argument or to be in the discussion of what we're talking about.
Right.
But to say that they're most skilled, 20 years, you couldn't get to a triple step back. All that parting and all that. And then too, if you was dribbling the air of the ball, bro, you straight up. Hey, man.
Come on, man.
Swing it, man. What you doing?
What you doing? Come
5
on,
more dribbles? You out here? Hold on, I got it. Back it up.
Miss,
what?
don't miss.
And then we had plays that you had to remember. And if you can't remember the plays, you couldn't be out here. It wasn't all this switching. You had actually strategy to where the strategy had to go to 2, 5, 2 and 4, y'all 3 and 4, y'all doing this.
Yeah,
you had to, man, you had a list of to be responsible
for. Sure that.
Not something, I didn't forget it. You know what? I'm out there because he's good.
Again, that's because of the illegal defense. You couldn't zone up as much. That's what KG's referring to. He was there for that transition.
Nah, bro, it was a whole nother level of know what you're speaking about. But yeah, I'll root for you, young fella. Just know what you're talking about, young fella.
So it is what it is. The generations sometimes always fail to try to understand each other. But at the end of the day, Anthony Edwards is going to have to be more polished when he speaks about the league historically. Because right now he sounds like a casual for a player that's potentially being set up to be the face of the next generation of top American players. Can't be sounding like a casual like that, brother.